Hey, I just got the new issue of HM Magazine. Oh, only problem is it's like more than 10 years old. It's more than 15 years old. Hey, I'm going to do something weird on the Heaven's Metal video show today. I'm going to go through an old issue of HM Magazine and just comment on it. Now, this had a Thrice on the cover. Thrice was a very cool band, kind of like U2, a believer or believers in the mainstream. Dustin Kensrue, who was a professed believer in Christ, was the front man for Thrice and wrote the lyrics and whatnot. And putting them on the cover for not just the first time, but the second time was a lot of fun. This was a white cover, and notice how it didn't have the big red masthead across the front with the white HM and the black underscored on the masthead. This was just a stroked red outline version of the logo, and also included a bunch of bands that we will see as we go through this issue. Obviously, sometimes one of the first things you come to is the ads, and look at some of these bands. Advent, you know about them. Once Nothing was pretty darn heavy. My Children, My Bride, I think it's TBA. So this is probably their debut album coming out. Buried Alive is a DVD. I actually never have seen this DVD. I'm shocked. All those videos that are on this can probably be found on YouTube, of course. And look at this, Storm the Gates of Hell. I love that album. It's got Carry Me Down on it. Oh Sleepers on here. August Burns Red. Messengers was one of their fan favorite albums. As Cities Burn. Truth Soul Armor. It was nice to have an ad from a clothing company like that was big into action sports. Check us out, Gwen Stacy on Ferret Records. Gwen Stacy's a band that played at Cornerstone, named after the girlfriend of Spider-Man. And were they a Christian band, or were they Christians in a band? They were expected, or not expected, but perceived as such when they came out. Another 2-page spread ad from people at Tooth and Nail Records. Look at Ivory Line, Secret and Whisper. If you, that's really cool stuff. Children at 18-3, really cool punk band from Minneapolis. Number One Gun. Moms Like Us 2 sampler. Emery, I'm Only a Man. 1000 Foot Crutch. Check this out, Anne Berlin, Lost Songs. I do not know if I've ever heard that album either. This is crazy, 15 years later, not having some of this product in my collection. The Glorious Unseen, kind of a worship band. Far Less Than Falling Up, A Dream Too Late. Pillar, For the Love of the Game, coming out in February of 2008. And here's a little message from the editor and who's going to be featured. This is really cool. A picture of some guys on a submarine holding their copies of HM Magazine. That was really awesome. Here's an interesting ad by a guy named William Stenner. If you bought his CD, he would get you a subscription or renewal to HM for only $5. Creative marketing there. Mainline Riders, Cliffy Huntington put together this band. It kind of sounded like blasting AC/DC rock. And Face Down Records started a new imprint called Dreamt Records. This was kind of like hard rock stuff. The Famine, the people from Embodiment laying down some heavy stuff. And what was amazing about the Hard News is we just got it coming our way all the time. Being a media outlet, the news came to us. We didn't have to send out reporters, news hounds to go find the news. It came to us. And just so many great bands making news like all the time. Spoken, Demon Hunter released 3 different versions of the Storm the Gates of Hell record. The deluxe edition has a ton of extras and a really cool packaging. Well, that's no doubt with Ryan Clark doing the packaging and design himself. Manic Drive was a cool band that progressed from a young band and is still going on today. It's pretty cool. Here is one of those things, is annoying things that fall out, a subscription card. We had these printed separately from the magazine, and they're called blow-in cards because like a vacuum cleaner type machine, the printing press blew this in here into the magazine as it went to press. Here's a live report from ACL Fest. Manchester Orchestra played there, and as a very popular band with a Believer as a lead singer and whatnot. Bob Dylan and his band played that year too. Far less. Staff picks. I picked Anne Boleyn Cities, Paramore Riot, The Almost Southern Weather, Demon Hunter Storm the Gates of Hell, and Neon Horse's self-titled debut. Favorite unsigned band of 2007 was Sophia, and favorite live show of 2007 was Paramore. Can you believe that? I really dug that Riot album. That's obvious. Thieves and Liars. Bradley Hathaway. Here's a cool article that talked about his foray into music. You know, people, you know him. He wrote that awesome poem, That Annoying Hardcore Dude That Goes Too Far, doing spoken word and being very popular in the early 2000s. He actually got into roots music. Very cool stuff. One thing I loved about the magazine is being able to use and afford color. We mixed black and white with color. And so when we got to the feature articles, we incorporated color as much as we could into those feature articles. So it was just so fun to be able to plan and lay that out. And I just love taking large photos and laying them across the gutter or the spread. And notice the use of red, black, and white, color combination I have loved forever. It's on display here again too. So Pillar for the Love of the Game article. This one, Full Blown Chaos, I actually had a disclaimer on the letters from the editor page where I talked about the this guy was got a ministry license or an ordainment from a mail order place, and I talked about how they were kind of had some deviations from Orthodox Christianity, let's say, and I pointed that out in there. And there's a poster. You remember getting HM Magazine in the mail and having posters to put on your wall? I really enjoyed starting to do this midway through HM Magazine's 28-year history of being in print. It was always really cool. Like here's Audix and here's GHS Strings. Having gear ads in a music magazine was really kind of a cool sign of success for a magazine, having an audience because the gear people wanted to reach. And we had an enormous percentage of readers to HM who were musicians. A lot of people in the scene played instruments, so it made sense for advertisers to reach out. And here's Skillet, who is totally still killing it today. Skillet killing it. They are featured in that ad. And here we go with the Thrice cover story, which was written by Andrew Schwab of Project 86. It was always cool when you had like celebrity writers writing for us. And he talked about courage and people being remembered for the risks they took. And they talk about, so it is with man, so it is with bands. Talks about Thrice being risk takers. Here's an example of something you learn from as a graphic designer, magazine editor, layout person. See these photos of the band have like a really dark black background, and you put that over a black background underneath it. You think it's just going to be one big black stripe all the way across, and the background here would be seamlessly tied into the background here. But this is flat black, or it's just black, and this black has multiple layers of ink to it. CMYK, cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. So this is a much deeper, richer black, and this is just a flat black or single layer black. And so if I was going to do this over again, I would make this color, instead of being black, I would make it registration, which means it would get cyan, yellow, magenta, and black ink in it. It would make it dark where you couldn't see a division between those two backgrounds. Just a little graphic design thought there. Here I Come Falling, the band I did not remember until I started reading the album review in the back and gave it a high rating. Retroactive Records, I used to design these ads for Matt Hunt in Retroactive because he was just, and he still does to this day, just releases tons of Christian metal and hard rock releases. This has already been 9 minutes. And so here's this Korn Says interview. It's really cool. In the introduction, I mentioned that the publicist made me commit to not asking about the departure of Brian Head Welch and his recently published book, Save Me From Myself, and blah, blah, blah. So I didn't know what to do going in, but I was interviewing Fieldy, the bass player. And it's interesting, what do you think of Jesus Christ? What's that? What do you think of Jesus Christ? I think that he is the way and the truth and the life. Wow, that is the first time I think somebody has ever answered that question in HM Magazine with that answer. And then my follow-up question is always, what do you think about his claim to be the way, the truth, and the life? He says, that's exactly what I think. So this turned out to be a really cool interview, and this is a really cool story because, you know, Fieldy followed his bandmate, so to say, into a faith in Christ. It's cool when some member of a group comes to Christ and their walk and their testimony and the change in their life is so undeniable that people around them come to Christ too. And so it usually doesn't happen when someone's a hypocrite and just a big jerk and it's all a big show. People around them see that and they stay away from it, maybe drive them further away from Christ. But when something's real, other people around you sense it, taste it, feel it, and might come to Christ themselves. And that was the case with that story. And also the band Kansas, and also the bass player from U2, Adam Clayton, coming to Christ years later. It's just a cool testimony about the walk of the other believers in the band. Demon Hunter stormed the gates of hell. Chad Olson reviewed this positively. The rating system we had, if you ever read HM Magazine, you might have noticed that I hardly ever gave anything a 5, because a 5 basically says it's a classic. And it's hard to predict what album is going to be a classic, because a classic proves itself over time. You know, 5 years later, you realize, oh, this is a classic. I'm still listening to this today. Fabulous was what, if something was really, really fabulous, I'd give it a 4. And at 3, some people might think that's a C grade, like A, B, C, D, F. But man, if you got a 3, that's solid. That's good. Even though solid was kind of a cut down. Oh man, your drums tonight were really solid. That's all you can say about it, man. You must not have liked it very much. And suspect means there's some things wrong with it. And then 1 means a miss. I hardly ever gave anything a 5 or a 1, because those are extreme ratings for me. And Bellyacres did a bunch of merch for a lot of bands, and they advertised in every issue of HM, which was really cool. It was really cool to have so many faithful advertisers that believed in us and got results from advertising in our magazine, and they just kept it up and helped us do what we do. Copeland is such an amazing band. Love that band. So anyway, I gave Demon Hunter a 4 out of 5. Here I Come Falling, both me and the writer, Dan Fraser, gave him a 4 out of 5. Bradley Hathaway's foray into music, gave it a 4 out of 5, and I wrote the review too. And it's interesting, this horror DVD didn't get a rating, I'm just noticing now, but probably because it was a DVD video thing instead of a proper album. Quick and the Dead, not to be confused with a band called the Quick and the Dead from Australia, who was kind of like a U2. Glass Hammer is a prog rock band, gave him a 3 out of 5. Christopher Kincaid got a 4 out of 5. Ooh, New Method got a 2.5. The asterisk means a half. The writer of the New Method review, Paul Kupek, gave it a 1. Ouch. Apologetics gave it a 2.5. Swirling Eddies album. Wow. The Midget, the Speck, and the Molecule. Tony Shore wrote that review, and we both gave it a 4 out of 5. Fearscape got a 4 out of 5. Always a fun thing to review. I really enjoyed DVDs when it was a new format. I was just totally loving those. And it's funny, we had not only did we have a review, but we had ratings, like the spiritual relevancy. If you saw this movie with a friend, how easy would it be to come have a conversation about spiritual things after watching this movie? And so this one got 100, that one got a Fantastic Four got a 20. Beyond the Gates, obviously a missionary movie, got 100. The Rescue Dawn got 100. Wussification got 100. Reign Over Me got 50. Obscenities, we used to call that blue language. Scenes of gore, we used to call blood and guts. And nudity, sexuality, we used to call naked people. Had like a NP and a BG for blood and guts and a BL for blue language and SC for spiritual conversations. I guess we changed that over time when we had a new staff person come in. And we had kind of gadgets we reviewed a lot of electronical stuff, which is always fun. Technology is fun. Christian art, this is one of the best parts of HM Magazine through the years, is this column written by Kemper Crab. very intelligent. It's funny, Chris Wigeman and Greg Tucker are two columnists that David Allen brought on board with HM. And Chris's column this time, he had some free time in Indiana or Salt Lake City, and he wanted to go see some college basketball, and he bought tickets, and he found out that the ticket he bought was for Disney on Ice and not a basketball game at all. And he talked about, kind of tied that into spirituality. Pick of the litter is unsigned bands. And here's one of our own house ads for the HM merch. The Worshipful Volume t-shirts we sold were very, very popular. I always like the heart on the sleeve of the Scenester shirt. Not everybody did, though, because it didn't sell too well for us. The Cage is one of those mainstream metal bands with Christians in it. And here's an album, Memphis May Fire, on Trustkill. So we had like a mainstream label like Trustkill advertising their Christians in a band in it. Bombworks, remember them? And here's an ad from Victory Records with Blood Comes Cleansing was a Christian band. I'm not sure Dead to Fall was Christian or not. That might have slid in there because the label, did like a gang ad when they bought an ad, and kind of this was their open door, but I'm not sure about that. I can't remember. That's 15 years ago. Rise Records are the ones who gave us The Devil Wears Prada, and some of these bands got to get notoriety in our scene because of that. And the back page was always dedicated to the gospel. It's like this is the most expensive part of advertising in a magazine. I always thought to myself, God paid for that with the death of his son. Nobody else could match that price. So I always kept that as an ad-free part of the magazine. And this guy with the knife behind his back, sometimes this includes me, just talking about how each one of us can be liars, hypocrites, murderers, filled with hate, and just realizing that, we've got to submit our flesh and our darkness to the Lord, and he can redeem it. And we're actually called saints, and we can walk in love and light. But, as long as we live in this body, we have to battle the flesh. And so it can be easy to hide and fake people out. And so that's what this was about, to try to pick that with people's heads and hearts, and obviously kind of point them to Christ and having a pure heart, which I believe is possible with the Holy Spirit because he resides inside of us. And through submission, we can rest in the finished work God's done, and not be a backstabber. But we're not above that. So just that reminder that, hey, I can fall like the next guy. Anyway, so this was it, issue number 129. It's actually still available at the hm.press.square.site website. You can pick up several back issues that are still in print. Not a lot of quantities available, so when they're gone, they're gone. But hope you enjoyed this little look back into the past. I hope it wasn't too boring for you, especially being 18 minutes long. Join the discussion. Talk about some of these bands, this magazine, or whatever.